Senator Bradford did raise his hand and then lowered it. Is there any way we can, I want to make sure I give him an opportunity. Is there any way to pin him and allow him to make a comment? Mr. Bradford, you can raise your hand and we'll go ahead and put you back on there. I apologize, we did not see that. Mr. Bradford, you can now speak.
I'm sorry, I've had problems all day on this, so I missed all the last few minutes. So continue and I'll come back.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, we'll give him an opportunity at the end of public comment then. So we'll go ahead and get started.
Good morning. My name is Paulina Chavez, and I represent Everyone On. We are a national digital inclusion nonprofit, unlocking opportunity by connecting people in under-resourced communities across the country to affordable internet and devices, and by providing digital skills training. I'm here from Los Angeles to stand with equity advocates in the room and urging the CBC to use its leadership to urgently pursue fixes to the deeply flawed maps driving the state's broadband investment decisions. Myriad of organizations and advocates have presented copious evidence of the flaws. Extremely wealthy enclaves of mansions are marked on the maps as unserved and even priority unserved, even as incumbent ISPs publicly advertise gigabyte service at affordable prices to those same enclaves. High poverty neighborhoods are marked as served, even as attempts to get service from the ISPs that allegedly serve them from no service available messages, or offers of service that are slow and expensive. Apartment buildings housing dozens of families are marked as single unit dwellings, or marked as served when only a leasing office can get service. Housing in farm worker communities and other rural communities are undercounted, resulting in an understatement of unserved households. A recent LA Times editorial said the agencies acknowledge the maps have problems, but have proceeded anyway. It's irresponsible to base billion-dollar once-in-a-generation in funding decisions on bad data. It's not only irresponsible, but the reliance on bad data threatens the effectiveness of the billions of dollars in once-in-a-generation broadband infrastructure investments, and may perpetuate the same divestment practices of industry stakeholders that have bypassed the high poverty urban, rural, and tribal communities for decades. This approach could double down on the digital divide, not solve it. It is not too late to change course. We urge the committee to act with urgency and decisiveness to address these demonstratively inaccurate maps to ensure the state's broadband for all goals can be met. Thank you.
Good morning, council members. My name is Mia Hatfield. I'm one of the co-chairs of the Oakland Youth Commission, in which we represent the diverse needs and rights of Oakland's 50,000 plus youth. I am also a student at Oakland Tech High School that serves 2,000 Oakland students. I'm here to talk to you about the impact of broadband for all and the effects of it on my community. My entire educational success depends on the internet, and I could not do my homework every night if I did not have access to the internet. I should not have an advantage over my peers just because my family has the ability to pay for quality internet. Oakland's youth are historically neglected and deserve to be put first in your priorities. The state's proposal to cut Oakland's middle mile network by 56% is unacceptable and perpetuates divestment from historically Black and brown neighborhoods. Stand up for Oakland youth and invest in us.
My name is Tamar Pena. I work for United Parents and Students, which is a nonprofit seeking to empower communities to become powerful self-advocates for quality schools. I flew here from my home in Compton to speak to you today. I was a teacher when the pandemic started, and I saw and experienced firsthand the devastating impacts of the digital divide. The communities I work with include some of the least connected, highest poverty, most vulnerable in the state. We have been systematically overlooked and left behind for decades. I just sat here and heard that Compton disappeared from the map due to a GIS error, but that is too common an occurrence for me to easily accept it was an error. We know Spectrum is already starting to install fiber optic in communities like Marina del Rey, Playa Vista, and Culver City, while Compton and communities like Watts and Linwood continue to be redlined. Multiple studies encompassing tens of thousands of data points have documented that companies like AT&T and Charter Spectrum routinely advertise higher prices for service in low-income communities of color than in neighboring wealthy communities. We also know that private ISPs, such as AT&T and Charter Spectrum, will enter into agreements with landlords such that tenants are only allowed to subscribe to that internet service. One family I work with was paying AT&T's bills for months, even though AT&T did not provide a service which allowed them access to the internet. This family is now disconnected, given that other ISPs are not allowed to serve this building due to the agreement the landlord has with the ISP. We are encouraged by and fully supportive of efforts by our community leaders to close those gaps with a focus on equitable access to broadband that is fast, reliable, and affordable, and building service with, by, and for the communities we serve. So I'm here to urge you, as the leaders of the agencies responsible for deploying billions of public broadband dollars and the leaders advising decision makers, policymakers, and bureaucratic officials doing the day-to-day work to ensure we don't waste those dollars by doubling down on the mistakes of the past. Please don't shovel our public dollars to private bottom lines. Prioritize community, support local leaders' work, and ensure our chronically underserved communities finally get the solutions they deserve.
Good morning, Council. My name is Jorge Rivera, and I represent the Healing and Justice Center. Our organization serves low-income people of color communities in the San Gabriel Valley within Los Angeles County. COVID highlighted the need for digital equity when our communities were unable to connect with us and receive vital resources that were intended to support and protect them during the pandemic. Almost a year ago, our Digital Equity LA Coalition shone a light on a deep-seated ailment within our county and state: the glaring disparity in broadband offerings between our low and high-income communities, an issue that strikes at the very heart of community wellness and justice. Look no further than Crenshaw, a predominantly Black and brown neighborhood where in one census tract 30% of residents grapple with poverty. Here, Charter Spectrum demands $50 per month for their standard internet tier. Contrast that with Mar Vista, a primarily white neighborhood with just 1% poverty, where the same service is advertised at a mere $20. This isn't an anomaly. It's an intentional barrier to community healing and growth. The divide is not just anecdotal. UC Santa Barbara's research and the comprehensive Cal Advocates analysis mirror these findings. And alarmingly, that extra $30 in Crenshaw seems to match the Affordable Connectivity Program subsidy. Cal Advocates crystallize this in their stark observation, quote, if broadband providers raise prices to match subsidies, i.e. monetize subsidies, the ultimate result is that the broadband providers will benefit from the subsidies, whereas customers will not. Our digital divide isn't solely an infrastructure issue. It's about whether we choose to use this infrastructure to nourish or neglect our most vulnerable. We implore this council As we forge ahead with California's Broadband for All initiative, may we embrace a holistic, equitable, and nurturing vision. We must not tread the same worn path. Let's heal, unite, and prosper together. Thank you.
Hello, good morning. My name is Ulysses Zadaran. I'm the Executive Director for Tech Exchange. We've been rooted in Oakland for 3 decades, working to bridge the digital divide by ensuring that all families have access to a computer, affordable internet, and the tech skills necessary to enhance their quality of life. I want to first commend the CBC, the California Department of Technology, CETF, and CPUC for the ongoing work to build digital equity in our state. As it was mentioned, Tech Exchange, we have been a partner of this work with all these agencies for several years now, and we're very appreciative of our partnership with you all, and very excited about the work to continue to build digital equity with this hopeful transformative investments moving forward. But I'm here today because as a CBO rooted in Oakland, we were disappointed to learn that the state suddenly reversed its decision to build middle mile infrastructure along SR 185 International Boulevard, the street which we call home. This was done based on data that inexplicably shows more concentrated need in Pleasanton than in East Oakland. Unfortunately, the state's broadband map erases the need of our communities and the reality that upwards of 30% of our communities are without high-speed internet access. The pandemic certainly illustrated how social inequities not only persist in our society, but are exacerbated when there's a lack of public investment in our communities. These divestments negatively impact educational outcomes, negatively impact healthcare access, and public safety, among other indicators. Essentially, these divestments perpetuate generational cycles of poverty and could perpetuate them further for decades to come if something isn't done right now. Access is indeed the foundation upon which digital inclusion and equity is built, and it's not too late for the state to reaffirm its commitment to our shared values of equity and community. We're asking that you please reinstate middle mile investment in California's least connected communities and work with us, the folks who know these communities well, to develop a map that captures the lived experience of our students, families, and our community members. The pandemic also illustrated our humanity. It illustrated our ability to come together for the greater good and to really improve the quality of life of our communities, not only for them to survive, but to thrive. We stand in solidarity with Oakland Undivided, Digital Equity LA, CADE, and other advocates across the state, urging the CBC to take the lead on putting equity back into broadband work for all. Thank you very much.
Hello, Council. My name is Katie Liang, and I'm a student at Oakland High School, and I serve as a District 5 Youth Commissioner on the Oakland Youth Commission. District 5 in Oakland is my home district that covers Fruitville, which includes International Boulevard, which is one of the areas that is impacted by your proposed cuts. I am here before you today instead of being at school to speak on how prominent this issue is. If you are here cutting internet access from low-income neighborhoods, you're impacting the youth who live in these areas. I'm a youth that lives on International Boulevard. Every day after school and after extracurriculars, I come home to complete homework on my laptop. There have been numerous times where I've turned in homework late due to internet problems. My community is already extremely underserved, and elected leaders still find a way to neglect and fail my community. Governor Newsom promised a multi-million broadband investment on my street, and where 30% of families don't have access. There was a $12.8 million promise to Oakland, but only a $5.7 million investment happened. That is a $7.1 million cut that could have been spent on making a middle line broadband on International Boulevard, which would have helped families living in Fruitville and Deep East Oakland to internet access. How did low-income communities lose investments for internet access, but wealthier communities such as Pleasanton and Beverly Hills face no divestment? This is why I am here to urge you to reconsider your decisions about how and where to spend nearly $4 billion in public dollars from CDT's middle mile broadband initiative, and examine your sources properly, because what you're seeing are fake maps. I urge you to bring this process back out to the open with active outreach to communities, because your communities aren't the ones that are impacted. Communities of color like mine are the ones that will suffer the consequences once again. Thank you.
Okay. My name is Amber Johnson. I'm a high school student on the Oakland Youth Commission and on All City Council. Within Oakland Youth Commission specifically, I'm our District 6 representative, which is a big area of East Oakland, an area that your broadband maps are negatively impacting, by the way. You may not see these areas as important or not worth your time or funds, but these areas hold families, futures, everyday people who deserve the right to something as simple as internet. We're in a digital age, so this is no longer a luxury, but it's a necessity to the growth of families, and without it will worsen the disparities amongst Oakland neighborhoods. I started high school in 2020, online. I had no access to consistent internet, which affected my grades, which affected my mental health, which affected my relationships that still impact me to this day. This issue has longevity and it's deeper than you think. What about those who need access to learn about immigration issues or wellness and mental health care? You're neglecting the needs of those who need you most. We're not asking for handouts to Oakland. We're asking for the state to commit to creating a state broadband that isn't discriminatory. We want for you to work in partnership with people who actually know what's best for our community so that you can create positive change where it's truly needed. If you really care about the well-being of Oakland, a city that continues to contribute so much to California culture, then you would make the right decision. Invest in the people who's really disconnected. Thank you.
Great. We'll wait for the clock. Good afternoon. My name is Lily Beth Genghis. I'm the Chief Tech Community Officer of the Caper Foundation, where we focus all of our work on the intersection of racial justice and technology, because we believe that technology is not only a possibility for income mobility, which addresses all of the systemic disparities that we face, especially as we look at specific neighborhoods that have been redlined and we're still disconnected. Specifically for me, this is very personal because I'm an immigrant, so I know what it's like to just be hearing from some of the youth that you just heard when you have to go to your library to be able to have access to internet. When I immigrated here over 30 years ago, when I went to school over 20 years ago, I still had to be able to go to the library, but thanks to my mom working double jobs, she got us the first internet. She got us my first computer. That helped me then become a software engineer, graduating from South Central at USC. And yet, 20 years later, we're still facing the same issues, where now I work in Oakland, and there are still 36,000 families completely disconnected. So we're talking about these $8 billion that are multi-generational. We have a multi-generational coalition right now. And if these maps are not going to be able to be fixed, we're going to be doing a huge disjustice. And it's going to be a civil rights issue, because if you saw in the pandemic who had access to education, who had access to healthcare, who had access to jobs, so then that way they can eat, and who still had to work in the farms, who had to risk their lives, and now we're going to misuse this dollars of investment that is public dollars. I urge you to make sure that you correct those maps. As Mr. Moreau mentioned earlier, when there was the error that they found in Compton, but it was fixed. Great. Maybe we can finally fix the fact that Oakland was 56% slashed in their investment, and South LA was 70% slashed. Although you call it 17% statewide impact, but those are having disproportionate impact in the percentages of the communities. And not only that, but can you look me in the eye and tell me that some of the richest areas in California, like Pleasanton and Beverly Hills, didn't get at the investment? In fact, Beverly Hills got a new line that was added. Tell me, please, each of you look in the eye, if that's is that fair? I don't think that is fair, and we all know it. And you have the power to make sure you fix those maps, as we just saw earlier, because they can. So I ask you and I urge you to please reinvest in the communities that need it the most. And those are the communities that are disconnected, that have been redlined for many histories. This is our time to reset it. So I urge you to please do that. And if it doesn't work for Oakland, it doesn't work for California, right? And if it doesn't work for LA, is it going to work for California? And I'm a product of both of those cities. So I please urge you to make the right decision, look at the data, and there's still time, because time is of the urgency. Thank you.
Good morning, my name is Kathy Mesa. I flew today from my home in Southeast Los Angeles to ask you to consider the impact of broadband for all decisions have on my family and my neighbors. Today, I will be providing my testimony in Spanish to represent the families in my community who are entirely excluded from these meetings. Soy madre de 2 hijos y líder en mi comunidad de Southgate. La banda ancha para todos no es un privilegio, es una necesidad. especialmente en comunidades de bajos ingresos y mayoría latina como la mía. Antes de la pandemia no sabía la importancia de la conectividad digital. Las clases de mis hijos eran presenciales y las tareas se entregaban en papel. Cuando ocurrió la pandemia, tuve que conseguir un proveedor de internet accesible debido al cambio con el aprendizaje en línea. Durante los 2 primeros años pagué $49 al mes. Sin embargo, el servicio fue muy lento, afectando el aprendizaje de mi hijo, ya que se desconectaba el internet a la mitad de la clase. Y cuando regresaba, la maestra estaba en otro tema, causando frustración en mi hijo y poniéndolo en desventaja con más pérdida de aprendizaje. Mi familia se sintió forzada a tener que cambiar de servicio y después de cambiar a una velocidad más rápida a un precio de $75 por 500 megabits por segundo, el servicio siguió siendo lento y cuando lo reviso solo alcanza 350 o 400 megabits. Ahora estoy pagando por más velocidad, estoy pagando más precio y la calidad es igual de mala. Al menos 2 veces al mes, mis vecinos se desconectan del internet y duran varios días sin servicio. Y eso está creando barreras académicas para nuestros hijos al no tener acceso a la plataforma escolar. Los hotspots tampoco son confiables y se han convertido en un impedimento para la educación de mis hijos, creando impacto a largo plazo. Les pido que devuelvan la equidad digital y la banda ancha para todos. Gracias.
Good morning. I am so proud of the parents and students that are here today. And if you didn't understand what she said, all you need to know is that she is a mom who's paying $75 for 500 megabits of internet, and she lives in a low-income community. My name is Elmer Roldan. I'm the Executive Director of Communities in Schools of Los Angeles. We're a nonprofit organization that works to keep students connected and on track to graduate in Los Angeles Unified School District. We work with over 12,000 students across 5 neighborhoods, all of which are in LA Unified, as I mentioned. And these are some of the least connected neighborhoods in the entire state, including South Central Los Angeles, Watts, the Pico Union, and Boyle Heights communities of Los Angeles. Our families often express feeling neglected by the national profit-driven companies delivering internet in Los Angeles. Some areas don't have options for fast-speed internet or affordable internet for that matter. And we have the data that supports that. This is why we, as a coalition, support a locally driven solution for internet. On Monday, the CPUC released summaries for the 483 federal funding account grant applications totaling $4.6 billion, more than double the funds available. We were appalled to find that 5 of the largest internet service providers in the state make up close to 80% of the dollars that were applied for. The scale of public dollars that these companies are asking for is staggering. AT&T, for example, is asking for $1.43 billion of the $2 billion total that is available from public dollars. These same companies report record profits. In its most recent SEC filing, AT&T reported $1 billion in profit on their consumer broadband services. That's $1 billion in a single quarter. July through September of this year, that's up nearly 10% from the same period last year, at a time when everyday Americans are struggling to pay for their basic necessities and things like internet. So at the same time as these massive companies extract extraordinary profits and tighten their monopolies, they are asking for massive amounts of public subsidies. We fear that that this is coming at the expense of community-driven solutions that can and will provide more affordable, responsive, sustainable service to people who need it the most, like the students and parents that spoke to you here today. This situation underscores the urgent need to prioritize community interest in California's Broadband for All programs, from the middle mile to the federal funding account and beyond. There comes a time when making huge profits on the backs of public interest needs to be corrected, and the time is now. So we ask you to move forward with this, to work with us towards equity, maximizing public good with public dollars. We need courage and an ironclad commitment that to at least do as much partnership with our students, parents, and community as we do with industry, and ideally much more. Thank you so much.
Good morning, state leaders. My name is Ray Lopez Chang, hailing from Los Angeles and serving as Director of Advocacy and Planning at GPSN. We are an organization focused on improving LA public education through our group of over 70 LA-based organizations. And we are also a member and co-convener of the Digital Equity LA Coalition. I'd like to begin by sharing some personal information that is relevant to today's conversation. I am a child of Central American Chinese immigrants and refugees. My family fled to this country because their relationship with access to survival was interrupted by unresponsive and violent government systems. I've had to join my family to unlearn and relearn what access means in this country. And while my family was provided political asylum, today, several decades later, our communities are being met with a different face to access, which is the exclusion from a modern mechanism to receive healthcare, educate children, participate in democracy, get a job, or as my family would call it, survival. We appreciate that the CPUC and other relevant state agencies have made an effort to solicit input and engage communities on various proceedings. But the reason GPSN and others are here today is because to interact with this body, you need access to high quality internet or several $100s to book a flight to Sacramento, which means you likely don't hear from the underserved communities we represent. So when you hear from us, behind our voices is the weight of thousands of redlined Californians who have been shown broadband access is a luxury, or alternatively put, that quality broadband is more important in areas who live in luxury. The CPUC posts online its 5 core values: accountability, excellence, integrity, open communication, and stewardship, all of which you've subscribed to upholding. And at times we've experienced optimism when these values have been exercised, and we thank you for that. But more recently, given inconsistent communication and developments with the Middle Mile Broadband Initiative, these values have been ignored. And advocates and organizers have experience with government systems who ignore our communities. But we also have experience with government bodies who listen. And while the state says it wants to hear from community, especially given the CPUC's EEE grant, in recent months, trust has deteriorated significantly. And our collective goal to serve Californians equitably no longer feels like a shared goal. And so, like any healthy relationship, we are communicating what we know to be our reality based on the actions presented to us. Those include selective transparency and not so open communication. And so I'd like to emphasize that we have a tremendous volume of work together in the coming months and years. And our intention to amplify voices you don't hear from remains strong, but we hope your drive for community-rooted solutions is stronger. And it should not go unsaid that you all hold roles that require immense courage and immense commitment to public service. And we are holding on to the aspiration that decision makers and staff of this body and all relevant state agencies will reflect on your individual capacity to influence conversations, to repair harm, and live by the values you've set forth to this public? And if so, we have faith that as your actions evolve to recharacterize your intentions, that we will reciprocate our gratitude. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Carla Lopez Valdez, and I'm part of Para los Niños, a nonprofit organization that has been serving the LA area for over 40 years. Our work is grounded in a holistic model where throughout all our sites and schools, we provide mental health services, basic need and support services, not only for children, but also for their families. We know firsthand how pricing impacts internet access to the communities we serve. Throughout our work in this coalition, we have learned that in recent public meetings, broadband industry associations have asserted that the digital divide is a function of affordability, not access. We partly agree, it's both, and want to ensure this council has awareness that part of what's driving the affordability issue is the pricing practices of those same broadband companies. Further, as we wait to find out the future of the current federal subsidy programs such as ACP, it's critical that we all understand the ways industry pricing practices undermine the effectiveness of these subsidy programs and divert public dollars to pad already extractive corporate profits. A recent CPUC Public Advocates report found that California has some of the highest monthly recurring prices in the nation for fixed broadband service plans. At a time of critical need for broadband service, as you've seen and you heard, these price increases are detrimental to increase adoption. We ignore the role industry has played in getting us to this point, where we have the persistent digital divide with communities of color, low-income communities, immigrant communities in urban, suburban, and rural areas. All are disconnected in some way, shape, or form. The time is now to chart a new path, one that demands more accountability of private partners hoping for public subsidies, and one that creates more room for public solutions. Thank you so much.
Good morning, members of the California Broadband Council. I want to thank you for the work that you have put into serving in this council and for gracefully creating space for us to be here today. And I also want to thank the staff for such a warm welcome. It was, very surprising. This is my first time in this meeting, so I really appreciate the welcome. My name is Claudia Oliveira. I am president of the Downtown Los Angeles Neighborhood Council and also CEO of the DTLA Chamber of Commerce. But today I am speaking in my ILSR capacity. And like many of us here, I flew in today just to amplify the voices of my community. And when you see a sizable group and a heterogeneous number of organizations and individuals like this come together to push for decision makers, to take bold actions, and to craft a robust and comprehensive plan to make sure underserved communities are prioritized. We are all coming here with the same core values based on transparency and equity and anti-discrimination. I have seen firsthand the struggle brick and mortar owner operated minority small businesses experience, the inability for self-starters to have a competitive edge, and the workforce to acquire mid-career training and apply for the jobs we are all fighting to arduously to create because they don't have accessibility to reliable internet connection, especially in the impoverished parts of Los Angeles County, which you've all heard. You know the numbers. I don't need to, tell you again. ILSR has been at the forefront of data analysis, infrastructure education, and efforts to compile credible data and achievable solutions. All of you are in a position here where your decisions and recommendations could potentially make a significant impact in uplifting historically marginalized communities. I am asking that you do this from an economic empowerment lens and an anti-discriminatory lens, and make a commitment to put disadvantaged communities first. At this time, California is presented with an incredible opportunity to address our digital access disparity. This is an opportunity to do the right thing, and it's an opportunity to do some good. And thank you for your time.
Morning, council members. My name is Patrick Messick, and I'm here with the City of Oakland. This doesn't need to be complicated. By definition, when the government withholds generational investments from high poverty, predominantly Black and brown community, based on a map it knows to be flawed and has been proven to be discriminatory, this is called redlining. Plain and simple. No one is defending what's happening here because it's clear for all to see. Google California Interactive Broadband Map. The map shows you where the state will direct this historic public infrastructure investment. Each red dot, a priority location, places the state alleges without access to reliable broadband internet. Let's start in a high poverty community like East Oakland, where many of our students who spoke from today are from. In East Oakland, upwards of 30% of our households do not have internet. So let's look at the state map. What do we see? A sparse peppering of red dots, devoid of the reality experienced by so many in this room today. This undercounting erases the voices of our community. We know this to be true. We've been in the cabling closets of public housing in East Oakland, a rat's nest of copper cabling decades old, reportedly serving hundreds of our families. We've collected thousands of additional data points demonstrating the preponderance of unserved locations precisely where the state entirely removed SR 185 and entirely defunded I-580. Now zoom into a wealthy community. What are we going to see? The state inextricably adding dense clusters of demonstrably served locations in some of the highest income, most connected communities in California. With this data, it's no surprise that Livermore and Pleasanton segments were preserved when Oakland's was cut. It doesn't take confidential subscriber data to know that this is fiction. Google these addresses on Comcast's publicly available address lookup tool, and they'll tell you a current account exists at this address. This is not conjecture. This is not some hypothetical exercise. This is leading to the divestment and redlining of our community. This visual shows investment based on median household income based on the FFA map. By far, the vast majority of investments are going to household incomes above $150,000 per year. We all know better. Now we must do better. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Georgia Savage, and I'm here representing Oakland Undivided as our Deputy Director. Organizations from across California are here today, as you can see, to express our deep concern for the decisions made thus far. But we are also here to offer solutions. There is still $2 billion public dollars remaining, which has the power to completely revitalize broadband infrastructure in historically redlined communities. There is still time to do the right thing. Make no mistake, the decisions made today will impact Californians for decades to come. If equity is a driving principle, we must ask ourselves, which communities should receive funding first? The answer is clear. We must prioritize the most disconnected, highest poverty communities first. Low-income communities get the oldest, most poorly maintained infrastructure, if any at all. We saw from Patrick's visuals that We've been in these MDUs, we've been in these public housing units, and we've seen copper wiring from the 70s. That is not acceptable. That is not connection. As seen as well in those Hubble IQ maps, and just speaking with our community members, we see that these communities pay higher rates for slower, less reliable speeds, and many can't even access the internet at all. They've been bypassed for investment by private companies and have been for decades. So common sense and basic decency says we must start here. These communities cannot afford to wait another year while tens of thousands lack access to this 21st century necessity. Justice delayed is justice denied. Thank you.
Appreciate that. Thank you. Hi, everybody. My name is Diego Rodriguez, and as our relatives was mentioning, I'm one of the members of the nonprofit grassroots organization Homies Empowerment of East Oakland. So a lot of points were made, and I appreciate all the facts that were being shared. Just wanted to share that, when we think about bridging that digital divide, right? Ancestral wisdom will teach us that it takes a village. But in the deep East Oakland, at Homies Empowerment, we say it takes a barrio. In my short few years, I've witnessed community chants for education, for cultural awareness, and for the right to be seen and heard. Today, the streets of East Oakland echo with a new, yet intimately familiar plea. I think the demand is for equity in the form of connectivity, right? The broadband divide might sound foreign compared to struggles of our past, but it is intrinsically about access, equity, and ensuring communities stand on equal footing with the rest of the nation. We've been pushed, the essence of our struggle continues. We've been pushed to the back of the line time and again, yet Oakland always has found its way back into the light. The broadband divide may seem trivial to some, but it is as isolating as any physical barrier stifling our potential. The divide underscores that while battles evolve, the undertones of systemic inequity persist. Why is it that vibrant areas like the deep of East Oakland, teeming with culture and history, remained overlooked, pushed to the margins? We're discussing families, children, and elders who form the city's backbone, persisting against all the odds. So I will say again, our demand extends beyond a mere broadband connection. It's about dignity, inclusivity, and erasing decades of neglect. The pandemic didn't create these inequities, it simply further exposed them. So our decision makers and everyone that's listening, in the deep, we're taxpayers too. So we demand what's right. The children of Oakland deserve the same opportunities as those in the wealthier parts of our nation. Our elders shouldn't be isolated due to digital inaccessibility, and every local business harbors dreams as vivid and valid as any other. Those with power to enact change consider the cost of keeping an entire community disconnected in this digital age. The spirit of East Oakland is definitely one of unyielding resilience and in a belief of a better tomorrow. So let our call not just be for connectivity, but demand for equity and justice. It's time to answer that call. So thank you for the time.
Good morning, members of the council. My name is Lindsay Skolnick, and I'm representing the California Alliance for Digital Equity. I'm here to uplift the Alliance's deep concerns in regards to the opaque decision-making process that resulted in the release of CDT and the CPUC's updated network maps. These maps were published without any explanation or paired data, which is shocking when you consider the unprecedented level of investment in CDT's nearly $4 billion middle mile broadband initiative and the CPUC's $2 billion federal funding account last mile program. Over the last few months, our partners have requested more details about the MMBI map changes from various state stakeholders, but have received very little information. After many back and forth conversations, we were hoping to at least learn what segments of the MMBI map have been contracted to build or lease. Up until last week, there was no publicly available information about the funding allocations for contracts. Rather than hearing from state stakeholders, we learned from a Cal Matters article that the state had already spent $1.8 billion on various lease purchase, and joint build agreements. And of that, 1.2 billion went to leases and existing infrastructure in areas like Beverly Hills and West LA. This is astounding, not only due to the continued lack of transparency, but also because this approach doubles down on infrastructure in some of the state's most connected communities. Should the state continue to rely upon these maps, we worry a once-in-a-generation broadband infrastructure investment could become a wasted opportunity to finally close the digital divide. We urge you to reprioritize bringing broadband infrastructure to California's least connected communities. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Brandy Huffman, and I'm the people that you're trying to reach. I live in housing. I have children at home. I struggle. I pay more in Wi-Fi than I do in rent. I have 2 different companies I have to go by because I'm only getting 10% out of what I'm supposed to be getting of unlimited. So I have Comcast and I have Metro. My son, who attends OMI, Oakland Military in Oakland. I am from Oakland. We had a big issue. He takes this top class. I'm sorry, I went blank. But he takes top classes there, and he gets all A's. We had an incident for a week. We didn't have Wi-Fi due to Comcast's fault. He went down to B, and he's looking at me, and I'm looking at him. I'm doing the best. I'm calling customer service. I'm calling everybody to the point I'm in tears because I can't help my son doing the best he can at school. He's taking college courses and high school. I have 10 kids. I have 2 boys left. The older ones are like, Mom, give him this. We have this. They give me money to try to help him because they see their little brothers doing harder than they did. And I'm just asking that y'all reach out and help. We need affordable working Wi-Fi. I have an autistic child. I need Zoom calls. I have other children that I've adopted who have Zoom calls to therapists. I have cancer. I needed a reasonable accommodation. It got denied because my Wi-Fi that did not work didn't get the paperwork in from the doctors. So now I have to start all over from the process to do anything. So please, 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 affordable and working in those areas, please, please.
Hi, I just want to thank everyone for their public comment. We do have a lot to continue to get through, and I would just ask if you could just please be respectful of the 2-minute time frame, so that we're able to get through everyone and everyone's able to share their public comment and thoughts with us. So thank you so much.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, sister, for your vulnerability and for being brave and courageous to give that message. My name is Maria Villamil. I'm here on behalf of California Native Vote Project, a member of DELA Coalition. Our organization represents Native Americans and indigenous communities in LA County and across the state of California. We are a trusted messenger for Native people to achieve equity and justice by increasing civic participation and community organizing across the state. I'm here to talk about the impact that our Native American Californians are experiencing because of poor access and equity in broadband internet across the state. Native nations have not experienced digital redlining. They have experienced digital indifference, a situation bound to persist unless greater investments are made to bridge the digital divide in tribal communities and urban and rural communities across the state. Tribal nations have faced systemic oppression for centuries. Broadband for us is not just about internet access, but about a pathway to obtaining an education, improving health, and acquiring economic resources necessary to thrive, just like the many different communities that are being represented here. Our communities have the lowest amount of access to broadband internet of any California demographic, 4% lower than the statewide average. I'm not here to compare or to judge, but we do want to make sure that we're represented as well. State funding is key because we have 109 tribes in California, and even though the tribes may be overseen by federal government, our urban and rural communities have are making the great request for you to prioritize the interest in broadband for all programs from the middle mile broadband program to federal funding account and beyond. Tribal representation is important when making decisions in all the areas of infrastructure. So we demand that you continue to include us in tribal consultation and across all meetings that you're having. I ask that you prioritize equity and public interest for alignment and collaboration across all tribes and people of color in the county of Los Angeles and across the state of California, including Oakland. Our communities need respect and all broadband access now.
Good morning. My name is Elizabeth Aguilar. I'm with Communities and Schools of Los Angeles, and I flew out here today to implore you to consider the impact of broadband and all of the decisions on the community that I work in. At Communities and Schools of Los Angeles, we provide social emotional learning to students across 5 neighborhoods in Los Angeles, in the Los Angeles Unified School District, all which are predominantly Black and Brown students. I'm here to proudly represent the students and the parents, guardians that we work with, and to share the frustrations that we come across constantly. While we provide virtual mentorship programs to reach more students across Los Angeles, the reality is that a lot of these students do not have the adequate connection to be able to participate in these virtual programs. I'd like to remind you that a lot of our students are applying, all of our seniors are applying to the UC system at the time, and they are being paired with some of our mentors, and unfortunately, they're not being adequately connected to them. This frustrates them, right? They're not only applying for school, they're applying for scholarships, they're applying for jobs, they're applying for things that they really need, right? Healthcare and things that they're unable to do so. And the frustrations not only extends to them and their families, it extends to all of us as well, because we're trying our best to support them. And that's why I'm here today, to please help us. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Paola Schenkelberg with Communities and Schools of LA, and I also flew here from LA to be able to help you consider the impact of broadband for all decisions for the communities that we support. Like Liz said, we provide support at 15 LAUSD Title I schools. We place caring adults in schools to support them academically, emotionally, and socially. During the pandemic, when the school shut down, we quickly realized that we needed to expand our efforts. And in 2021, we launched our External Affairs Department focusing on advocacy. As part of our advocacy efforts, we launched our student and parent advocacy committees, where we meet virtually with those students and parents. Many of our committees members are not able to have the full capacity to meet during those meetings because it's virtually and they don't have the bandwidth to be able to fully participate. Most of the time they have to have their videos turned off so that they're able to hear the meetings, so that they can hear the information. Many of the families we support do live in South LA and East LA and are just trying to make ends meet. Being able to spend $70 to $100 on internet is not possible for them. Reliable, affordable, and accessible internet continues to be an issue our families have to deal with on a daily basis, and it affects most facets of their everyday lives. I urge members of this committee to do right by our families so that I may go back home and share with them that the state is listening and they're taking care of their needs and their consideration. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Sofia Sandoval, and I also represent Communities and Schools of Los Angeles. Our mission is to surround students with a community of support to empower them to stay in school and achieve in life. So I'm here to elevate concern about postponing funding for broadband investments within our most underserved and least connected communities. The decisions made in recent months, in particular shifting communications on the part of CDT around middle mile plans and what is currently funded, have left our communities anxious about being marginalized even further in the digital divide. We're grateful to the governor for his commitment to seek additional funding for the middle mile to cover gaps, but we are concerned that spending in our highest needs communities has been pushed last in line behind spending in wealthy communities, as some have already mentioned, Beverly Hills, that
don't need as much support as our communities that we serve. We are left to fight for and hope for future new dollars, which are not guaranteed. And especially as our state budget is more stressed and prioritizing this new allocation in the budget may come at the cost of resources available for other essential government assistance programs for the people in our neighborhoods. We urge the governor to issue a clear statement outlining his plan for future middle mile funding and urge both the governor and this committee to ensure that the already allocated $4 billion go first to the highest need areas, not last, as we fear is presently the path the MMBI is on. The time to act is now, and we respectfully ask the CBC to use your leadership to make sure that happens. Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Leslie. I grew up in LA and currently live in the East Bay. I am representing Oakland Undivided, and I will be speaking on the student perspective. Growing up in a low-income community, I know firsthand about the struggles of not having internet access and how stressful it can be on a student. Internet access is not a luxury, but a necessity, especially in today's digital age. I see that at my school every day, UC Berkeley, where people from different backgrounds are there. So you have low income and then higher income students. Each year, it becomes increasingly more competitive to receive an admission to a UC. It is already difficult enough to compete with higher income students that have access to several programs that low income students such as myself can only dream of. So council, I ask you this, why add an additional barrier for students that come from a similar background as me? Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Dal Stevenson. I am with the Oakland Undivided with my mom. I am a college student at Merritt College, and I am a supporter of special needs students. My opinion on this is that we can do better, and we can by supporting our community more. We are a work in progress, but I believe that our mission is not done yet. So I think that if we combine ourselves as to one large team, we can do better and be better, and hopefully that mission is accomplished. In my conclusion, something needs to be done. Period. I'm done. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Gabby Andrada, and I lead a cross-sector digital inclusion initiative in the Bay Area with Everyone On. We are a national nonprofit that seeks to unlock social and economic opportunity by connecting those in under-resourced communities to affordable internet access, computers, and providing digital skills trainings. In my collaborative efforts throughout the Bay, one fact has become abundantly clear: the digital divide is not distributed evenly. Entire communities have been bypassed and overlooked for decades, and it is not because our historically redlined communities don't want internet. In fact, I still haven't come across a community member that didn't want internet, so why are so many disconnected? The truth is that getting internet in East Oakland or the Tenderloin isn't like it is in getting the internet in Noe Valley or Pleasanton. Residents in marginalized communities are asked to pay more for less, and because they rely on outdated and poorly maintained technology, they rarely get the internet performance that they are paying for. Devices are important, digital literacy is important, but affordable, reliable, high-speed internet is the foundation of digital equity. The state has an opportunity to prioritize people over profits by investing in the communities we all know this funding is intended to serve. In solidarity with Oakland Undivided, Digital Equity LA, CADE, and advocates across the state, we urge the CBC to take the lead on putting equity back into broadband for all work. Thank you.
Hello and good afternoon, Council. My name is Alessandro Negrete, and I'm here representing Alliance for a Better Community in Los Angeles. We serve the Latino community on a number of issues, including health, civic engagement, economic prosperity, and education, among others. We work and have families in Southeast LA and East LA, and these are communities that are heavily impacted by inadequate access to survive, because that is what we're calling the digital lifeline. Digital equity is a digital lifeline. These communities are low-income, New-American, predominantly monolingual Latino communities. The Southeast LA community is represented by the Gateway City Council of Governments, has 5.4 of the state's population, but 14.3 of the state's disadvantaged communities on the census tracts. Looking at just the top 5% of the lowest income census tracts in the state, Digital Equity Late represents 26% of them. On November 21st, when we heard that our communities were in the initial 18 middle mile broadband infrastructure projects, we were thrilled. Furthermore, affirmed when they were included in the analysis and data in March 2022. Our local leaders got to work immediately over the last 2 years to leverage middle mile to bridge equitable access for our communities finally. But I'm here today because our communities, my community, are dismayed and frankly disappointed and furious yet again. The state has disinvested from our communities by moving Project 15 to a future unfunded phase of the work. Our communities are consistently left unheard and left with a feeling of disregard. We must address the situation to ensure fair and equitable access to the resources that were initially promised, and that there is a transparent process with accountability moving forward. With my last 30 seconds, I will address you as a community member that lives in these communities. And I ask you not to look at me, but think about the young comrades that are missing school today. A mother who's monolingual speaking is speaking to your hearts. I'm thinking about her family and and I ask you to think about, what does access mean to you, and what would it look like for you not to have the bare necessities you need in the digital era? Thank you.
Okay, good afternoon. I am not a public speaker, but I will be a public speaker today. My name is Ashley Cruz. I am a first generation undergrad student at UC Berkeley, majoring in political science. It is my final year, and it has been a struggle to get to where I am. I am the pandemic class of 2020, so the internet was that's where we realized that it was a necessity for my family. And growing up low income, it was very hard to get a computer or a laptop. And I am a middle child, so I have an older brother, and a younger child, and a younger brother. So we all had to share one laptop and one computer. And that was just hard because I had my college applications, I had everything to do, and my older brother also had to do his own things. And it just was very difficult to realize that internet access was just not there, was not reliable. And having this proposal, it's just going to change everyone activities. And I am from LA, so I know the struggles. And I thought that coming to Berkeley would have been such an experience of, oh, I'm leaving behind my low income community. But it was not that case, because just like in East Oakland, there are struggles that have yet to be resolved. Therefore, we need a change because we are the future. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Samantha Nunez, and I lead the Oakland Unified School District's Student Information Technology Internship Program. Our mission is to foster digital equity for the 34,000 students in our district and to empower the next generation Silicon Valley innovators and changemakers. The barriers to digital access faced by our community are systemic. On the back to school tech check completed by every OUSD family, over 20% of our families reported lacking access to home internet that's fast and reliable enough to support their child's education. Think about it. Nearly 1 in families lack access to the internet, which somebody previously said it's not a luxury, it's a necessity. Our interns help connect families with hotspots, but however, this is a temporary solution. It's funded by a COVID era program that's set to expire next school year. Even with hotspots, the connection strength degrades rapidly for our families living in our highest poverty communities. Even for our families paying for wireline broadband connections from big internet companies, speed test reveals thousands of households receiving speeds that are only a fraction of what they're paying and well below the 25 megabit per second download speed threshold to be considered served by the state. Structural problems require structural solutions, and I implore the state to direct this funding into the communities that need it the most, the communities this generational investment is intended to serve. Our students and families are counting on you.
I think it's still morning, but I'm going to say good afternoon.
Happy October. In some spaces, we call it Rocktober. And I'm here because we already know the issue, so I don't want to speak to that. What I would like to speak to is the benefit that I saw my son, who is autistic, gain in leaps and bounds through the internet. He researches math games. He looks up answers. He's a master researcher. And when I was growing up, my dad told me, go qualify your answers, which meant I had to go to an encyclopedia or library. He can qualify his answers right at home on his phone. And it's remarkable how empowering it is for this young man who will be sitting in one of these spots or higher. And so I just want to thank you guys for even wanting to do this, but we cannot divest in Oakland and Watts and Inglewood. It's outrageous because artificial intelligence is starting to be introduced. We are already behind the 8 ball. We got to catch our youth up, their scholars. We got to catch them up so they can even compete 10 years from now. And it's getting very nervous. You know what's going on in our state and how we are not, and how we're working toward doing something better. And I'm going to leave y'all with this. This was my favorite part from Hamilton. You don't want to be Bird that kills off progress. We want to be the one that stands there and supports, because somebody's going to tell your story and we want them to tell it with pride. Not you don't want to bring shame on your family members. Y'all gone and your family, yeah, that was auntie did that. We don't want that. We want to take individual accountability independent of this collective. And that's how we made it so far in America. That's why we're still growing. It's still an experiment. Now it's time this is a historic time. We don't want to sleep on this. We don't want to sleep on it. And I also want to say, when our communities are empowered, you won't see crime. You won't see as much littering. Because they're invested in being an American. Most of us don't feel like Americans. I feel like an American, thanks to my mayor. But I'm just saying. So let's what I'm gonna leave this with this. Put more heart in your love and more love in your heart. And that's all, because we want y'all here. You guys are the brains, and we want to work with you. And thank you for allowing us to speak on what concerns us. Thank you so very much.
Hi, thank you for sticking around to hear all of us today. I hope that what you see in all of these people, about half of us, I think, got on a plane before 7 this morning to be here in front of you. I hope that what you take from that is not feeling attacked, but feeling a sense of how desperate we are to be heard and how we're not feeling like we're being heard anywhere. That's why we get on planes at 7 in the morning to be here, give up our days of work and family and all of our other obligations to be here. So I hope you'll hear what we're saying in that spirit. I want to talk specifically to the ways that this continued lack of transparency erodes trust, continues to add to the feelings that you heard today, and really undermines any partnership that we might try to build. And I want to give some specific examples. And I'm going to pick on the MMBI today because that's the most current, but this is true of many pieces of work here. CDT talks in generalities about the changes to the MMBI maps and how we got here, but the specifics are really what matters. And I want to talk about some specifics. So there have been ongoing changes to the map that are made with no consultation, no advance notice, no conversation prior with the affected communities or the last mile projects that are going to be affected by those. The most recent changes were made last Friday, right before the Middle Mile Advisory Committee meeting. And the only way we know this is that there's a date at the bottom of a web page. Attached to that date is no indication of what those changes were, where they were made, anything else. We don't know that. CDT keeps it secret. CDT also today and Friday, and to Cal Matters, but not in individual conversations, talks about the lease contracts that are already signed for 85% of the network, but keeps all information about which segments are covered by those signed lease contracts or any of the terms of those lease contracts. That's a secret. We want to thank Ms. Smith for asking the question about what segments depend on additional funding. And we've also been asking that question, repeatedly got the same vague answer she got today. What segments will remain unbuilt without new funding is a secret. The last time publicly available data or analysis regarding what's driving the decision-making around the middle mile were published was March of 2022. The information behind the middle mile maps are a secret from the public, localities, and advocates. And we would love to cheer on the new RFI2 and support outreach to get more responses to that, except it's hard to invest in that when the results from the last round are, say it with me, secret. So we're ready and willing to be partners in this endeavor, but partnership implies real opportunity to work together, which requires a shared information set and a lot fewer secrets. Keeping secret what should be public information is not a path to partnership. It's not a path to successful implementation of this project. So we urge CDT and this council to move with urgency to transparency and actual partnership. We ask the council to support these efforts. Thank you.
I'm the last one. You are welcome. Good afternoon, Tracy Ryan with the Rural County Representatives of California. We represent 40 rural counties, and although I am the one person here representing a rural entity, I think the issues I'm going to talk about today equally apply to urban areas as it does rural areas, because this is a process issue. I am also going to focus on the MMBI because I think it is foundational to last mile efforts that our communities are undertaking, specifically local governments and municipalities that are trying to get our communities some last mile reliable broadband. The middle mile is needed for all of our last mile projects. And as you know, as we've been talking about, there's been a large investment by the state, $6 billion, plus more coming from the federal government. The changes in the middle mile map, I think it's kind of misunderstood on how that actually is affecting us now. The state invested $50 million in local agency technical assistance money. That money for our areas was invested in design of networks. Those networks were designed based on the middle mile map. The middle mile map has changed at least 3 times. Again, as the previous speaker noted, we don't know how many times it's changed. And so through the federal funding account process, we had to change what we were applying for and kick out projects to areas based on those changes of what we knew right then. The middle mile map has changed at least, again, twice since that point. We have areas such as Greenfield, which is in Monterey County, which is a largely farm worker area that has no service. That area we may not be able to serve because of changes done through the middle mile map process. And respectfully, I do have to disagree with how those changes are being described here today. Mr. Monroe said that they were simply, making parallel routes. In Greenfield, one of the areas that we really want to serve, the middle mile was changed and moved miles over across the river. Moving something across a river, now we have permitting problems, we have secret problems, and it may make that project inviable. Another area, Imperial County. The middle mile used to run north to south. It now runs east to west. We had projects based on the middle mile going north to south. Those projects, again, in Imperial County, largely disadvantaged communities, may no longer be viable. So I think that we need to be really clear how these changes are affecting our overall investment into broadband and the digital divide. And we are asking that there is more transparency in the process. I think, as Commissioner Houck stated earlier, the PUC has a very robust process
they have comment periods, they have document requirements, and we have none of that with the Middle Mile initiative. And we would like to see more of that and engagement with the community before changes are made, not after. Thank you.
Permission to proceed with Zoom comments?
Yes, please.
All right. I am seeing, and I apologize if I mispronounce your name. I'm seeing Carolina Del Campo. Please go off mute to speak. All right, we'll circle back if needed. Michael Turlip from Sandag.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Michael Turlip. I'm a digital equity planner with Sandag, the Metropolitan Planning Agency for the San Diego region. I wanted to start by commending this council, the CDT, and CETF's leadership for providing the resources our state needs to continue helping people sign up for the ACP. Here in San Diego, we're actively tackling our residents' challenges with connecting to affordable and reliable broadband in collaboration with many local partners. In our digital equity strategy and action plan, we've identified ways to bridge the digital divide. One of our strategies involves connecting underserved communities to affordable technology and internet resources. Helping enroll people in the ACP program does exactly that. While Sandag did not receive one of the FCC ACP grants, we continue to convene stakeholders and are supporting region-wide efforts in this front. Key stakeholders in our region, including the County of San Diego, the San Diego Housing Commission, as well as local jurisdictions like the City of Chula Vista and the City of San Diego, are working hard to sign qualifying households up for the ACP and can attest that there is a significant demand for this program. Earlier this month, we organized a highly successful enrollment event through a mass text campaign, which resulted in more than 150 attendees and thousands of independent enrollments. To share an anecdote, at this event, staff assisted a 75-year-old mother living on food stamps who had previously been paying $138 for her monthly internet bill and were able to reduce her bill to just $20, allowing her to use these funds for other crucial living expenses. As you can see, receiving assistance from trusted messengers is vital for the community members who would not otherwise be able to navigate this complicated process. As cost of living rises across the country, the ACP is an even more indispensable tool for keeping disadvantaged communities connected to the opportunity they need to thrive. We want to continue to do as many successful events like this into the future. So please continue to advise and advocate for federal funding for this program and for funding that will allow community partners to continue assisting the ACP enrollments. Our region is unified and ready to continue our efforts getting people enrolled in this program who desperately need it. Thank you.
All right, next public commenter, Jenny Sudana.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi, I'm Chenny. I'm a business consultant and a member of the DTLA Chamber. I want to make a comment on small businesses and how this is really important to budding entrepreneurs. My very first job was at Google in the advertising department, so I have a lot of firsthand experience about how the internet can influence a small business. I've also volunteered at SCORE, which is an arm of the SBA, and we would often counsel people from low-income areas that were starting a business. There were many businesses that needed, a desktop to create a website or a flyer. Or even, small brick and mortars that needed a point of sale system. To students, it's important to the community, but it's especially important to small businesses to thrive. So not having access to proper internet handicaps a small business and their potential for success. We are the wealthiest nation in the world and known for our technological innovations. So we need these places to have better access to something that can greatly impact the lives of the small, not just the small businesses, but also the micro economies around them.
All right. Ms. Flynn, is it possible to shift the Zoom so that we're actually seeing the individuals that are speaking if possible? No, there's no opportunity. Okay. All right. Just want to make sure. Oh. Next, we have Samia Zuber.
Hi, good afternoon, Council. Thank you for your time and opportunity to speak today. My name is Samia Zubair, and I serve as the Director of Programs and Partnerships for Hack the Hood. We're an Oakland-based nonprofit that provides free tech education programs focused on exploring foundational technical skills through a justice lens. Let's talk about justice. Funding for SB 156, the governor's historic Broadband for All bill, came from the American Rescue Plan Act. In handing down the dollars, the U.S. Treasury instructed states to advance racial equity by targeting resources to the communities of color, tribal communities, and low-income communities disproportionately negatively impacted by the pandemic. In November of 2021, the governor announced that South Central LA and Oakland, two communities ravaged by COVID-19, were selected as initial projects for the Broadband for All investments. For 2 years, our communities partnered alongside the state to actualize this commitment and reverse decades of divestment. Then, without any advance notice or discussion, the state defunds $28 million, or over half of the planned investment, citing a broadband map that is demonstrably inaccurate and discriminatory, an action antithetical to the intended purpose of this once-in-a-generation investment. This process is not broken. This is playing out exactly how it always has: divestment in redline communities. This is the default unless this council affirms that this time will be different. In solidarity with Oakland Undivided, Digital Equity LA, CADE, and advocates across the state, we urge the CBC to take the time and take the lead on putting equity back into Broadband for All work. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. We have Shobi Bakar. All right. Senator Stephen Bradford.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you, and I appreciate this opportunity to speak. And I just really want to commend all the public commenters who voiced their concerns. I too want to just recognize the work that the Department of Technology is doing with the deployment, but I think we would all have to agree it's moving at a much too slow of a pace. I'm also concerned about the complaint that we've heard from Californians all over the state, especially low-income individuals, regarding the middle mile and the last mile deployment, and the maps that continue to ignore or just eliminate those communities. That should be a problem for all of us, and I think it's no accident that Compton was ignored. I represent the city of Compton. I represent the most diverse Senate district in the state. It's not a poor district. We do have pockets where we have low-income people, but to continue to generalize Black and brown people as all poor, not all Black and brown people are poor, and not all poor people are Black and brown, but when we see the neglect, it's usually where Black and brown people are gathered, regardless of their income. And I think the PUC needs to really be more committed in making sure these funds for the last mile get to the projects that are needed the most, and make sure adoption and connectivity happens. And I just don't think it's happening in a real serious manner. And as we heard from so many speakers here today, we have communities that are desperate in need of getting broadband connectivity. We saw it during COVID-19, and it was exacerbated, and it hasn't improved since then. And as I've said, I've seen and heard this movie before. I've been in the legislature now for 14 years. I've chaired utilities both in the Assembly and now in the Senate. And we've heard from the same individuals. We should be concerned that the same message of lack of attention is being continued. And I just want to take my hat off to Sunny McPeak, somebody that I know is on the front line, on the ground. She worked with me directly in the city of Inglewood when we had connectivity issues almost a decade ago, and making sure that those communities were connected and our libraries with hotspots. But more needs to be done. And just an example, in 2012, when I was in the Assembly, I authored a bill that provided $30 million to connect public housing. Not a single public housing facility has been connected in 11 years. I asked the PUC, where is that money? it's time for the PGC to provide funding to establish adoption programs to these low income communities. But it's just not happening. So I think today is about accountability. We deserve accountability, but more importantly, we deserve the information also to make sure that these dollars are going to the programs that are needed the most and those communities that need it the most. So I stand committed to continue working with you, but it's a lot of work being done, but we shouldn't rehash what I've been hearing for the last 10, 15 years about lack of connectivity in the same neighborhoods. And many of the times they're not poor neighborhoods. And I just would want to just clarify something. Earlier, one of your first speakers talked about the Crenshaw neighborhood. I'm going to be specific. There's no Crenshaw neighborhood. Crenshaw is a boulevard that runs 23 miles through LA County. It borders or intersects some of the most affluent communities in LA County. The only difference is where there is lack of connectivity, those areas are predominantly Black and brown communities. Again, so we need to really take a look at the racial bias that exists in providing internet to our communities. So thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, Senator Bradford. Your comments are always well received, and we agree, accountability across to all. We look forward to working with you to make that happen.
All right, I have two public comment that was sent via email prior to the meeting. From Andrew Marr, resident living within CAL FIRE Zone 267. Existing wireline, fiber, or transmission routes are now failing or will fail for the third time due to severe entanglement with pole vegetation. If any broadband transmission deployment is done using existing poles, it must mandate seasonal vegetation trimming funded by government agency code enforcement. Current lower pole cabling connects E911, code red alerts, premise alarm, safety of life, telephone service, VoIP, and or copper resident service. And a second comment came from Kevin Horejsi. I would like to make you aware of a problem that is occurring throughout the state and is specifically affecting me. I own a condo built in the early 90s. The condos are 6 houses with a utility closet on the outside of one garage. We have original coax and telephone lines. There is a fiber company that has public access to our street and owns a box from a former company in our outside utility closets. The HOA board has been refusing for almost a year, and they have to allow the company access and allow me and my neighbors to get fiber. The fiber company is putting up all their money and even offered over $15,000 to allow them to install. It is a rather ridiculous that I would have to hire a lawyer, which I can't afford, just to have access to good quality wiring. I'm sure this is a problem among a lot of condo units. Not only condos are affected, but renters can also be affected by not being able to get access to a service that is at their doorway. There needs to be in place some type of right to access law if a broadband company is willing to pay to bring the service to your residences. I hope you can understand my circumstances and hopefully find a solution legislatively. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Nguyen. Is there any other public comment?
I do not see any in person or online, and we are complete with email public comments.
Thank you very much. Obviously, this is the point where we get an opportunity as council members. If there's any comments that you'd like to make, I want to just thank the public who came here today, that traveled, that participated remotely. Their engagement, their voices are very important. As public servants, we are here to serve the public, and we take that responsibility to heart. And the way we do that is to continue to improve. Sometimes it's difficult to hear areas that we need to. Things that obviously we're doing well, but there's obviously always ways too that we can be improving communication, transparency. So I look forward to working with the community to do that. With that, I'd like to open it up to my council members, both in the room and online, to see if there's any last statements. This is, remember, the last one for 2023 before we go into 2024. I just want to commend my partners here, because there is a lot of hard work that has been going on for over a decade. But obviously, there's been a lot that's happened in 2023. So I will look. First one is Deputy Secretary Flores.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, I want to echo your sentiments about the public testimony. I was struck by some of those young folks that got up and testified, and I don't think I would have had the courage at that age to do that. But given the importance of the subject matter, I think they were driven by sound reasoning to do so. Also, I wanted to commend you for allowing them to go over their time. I have, as a former chair of many boards and commissions, we're not as lenient sometimes, but I certainly appreciate the fact that you let them go way beyond their time limits. So I wanted to ask staff a question, though, if I could, about the State Route 71 in particular. And, it's a little bit alarming to think that Pleasanton would get money for middle mile, whereas the city of Oakland, which is quite impoverished in many areas, would not. So I was wondering if the staff could talk about that, and then maybe we might want to have a presentation on process in the future about how these changes are coming about, and maybe the public isn't brought along in that process. If we need public buy-in, we've got to bring them along. We can't just announce either secretly or whatever way. I'm not sure how it was done, but I was wondering if the staff could address that.
Mr. Monroe, do you have a comment to Deputy Secretary Flores' question?
Yes, in terms of, I apologize, I have to go back to look at State Route 71. But what I'll say is, this is really important. When we're developing an overall network, and so there are any given segment of a network, it's crossing the state. It's going to go through some affluent neighborhoods to get to the disadvantaged communities. That's the way the connection works. And so I think there's concern. And so I know that as the public and locals look at some of the what's been the way we've developed it, sometimes you'll hear us talk about kind of a wheel structure, but we have, in order to serve the greatest number of communities, we'll create these large rings, and some of them might go through affluent neighborhoods. It's not favoring those. We go through those neighborhoods because light has to pass through fiber. It has to go, and I think of the 405, for example, that goes through a number of disadvantaged communities, but the ring connects through Los Angeles. It does go through Beverly Hills, and then it goes all the way down through a number of disadvantaged communities down the 405 corridor throughout Los Angeles. So, just in terms of where that particular route goes, it actually goes through a number of those communities. But a network won't work if you only build in those disadvantaged communities. And I think that's a really key piece that I want everybody to be aware of, is that we've created this structure. Now, when we go on to, as we continue to build, we need that to connect to things too, right? And so in a lot of these cases, you'll see where we're constructing segments, but if we just construct those segments, they don't connect to anything. And so we've created this overall architecture where when we build segments, they have then there are they connect to the broader network throughout that are going to provide that connectivity throughout the state. Mm-hmm. So the same applies for some of the joint build agreements that we have. The idea is we have to get from where the internet currently is to disadvantaged communities. And so we have to, whether we're following a freeway or we're using existing infrastructure or partnering with somebody, we have to be able to get through those. We have to get to those communities, and sometimes the network will pass through more affluent communities. And it's not like those were favored by any means. We're trying to really connect where all of the unserved communities are.
So you would say that going through Pleasanton costs more money since money was allocated from, I guess, the Oakland area. The Oakland area, it sounds like testimony today said that money was defunded from the Oakland area to fund a project going through Pleasanton, which is, by the way, geographically on the other side of the mountain, away from Oakland, quite a distance. So I'm just wondering, is that what you're saying? So, or Oakland is just not. It's not feasible to put more investment in there to hit those poor communities. I'm trying to follow your logic. So
yeah. So I'm glad you're asking that question. We did not defund Oakland. Okay. We have a 10,000-mile map that continues to go through all of the areas that were originally identified, okay, the original routes. So no area has been defunded. But when we looked at the initial phased route, we were trying to get within a certain distance. That we're not doing that anymore. Right now, we are all of the original routes going through Oakland are still on the map. They're still being, Caltrans hasn't stopped work. We're still developing all those. So we wouldn't say that any area has been defunded. As soon as an area is ready to build, we're going to build. And while we're doing that, we're also looking for whereas their existing infrastructure, we might be able to get service faster. So I want to be careful about that and really provide clarity. We haven't defunded any segments. So in terms of where we use the,
it just sounds like there was a different route that might have been more feasible instead of using. I think they used as an example was the State Route 71 going through Oakland.
Yeah, so when we chose the routes, we used there's a lot of public input that had gone into, originally trying to where do we need to serve, and then we used the highway system as the corridor, right? And there wasn't any. The most important part of that aspect was if Caltrans was going to build it, or if the state was going to build it, it makes the most sense to build it on state land. And use the department that actually has done this work before. But when we looked at other alternatives, we found other alternatives that were going to get us many more miles. And so that in some of those cases, we chose some parallel routes. I'd be happy to kind of talk through and look more closely at the routes that you're talking about in the maps. But I think that's really important is that as we've looked at these, the leases and the joint builds that we were talking about, they were providing the best connectivity and the fastest way to provide service to the greatest number of people throughout the state. And then as we build the rest of the network, we'll have now a framework and a backbone to connect to.
Yeah, I'd really like some additional information, in particular in rural counties, because as you're aware, food and ag, that's our purview. And so farming community, the working community is extremely important and needs this access. So as we go forward, I'd like to hear what you folks are doing there. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Secretary Flores. And I also, the other question you had about transparency on the maps, the public should not just see a revision number and then try to have to figure out what changes. So we are committed at Department of Technology to provide more transparency and more opportunity. We do have a new communication and stakeholder relations Deputy Director, Monica Hernandez. And so she is going to be helping build out that program to make sure that there's more communication. So thank you very much for your comments. Is there any other? I see Deputy Director Green.
I just wanted to go back to the maps real quickly. I mean, is the most current map that we have accurate, and does it solve the problem that was brought up today by the public comments?
So yes, the map that we currently have is accurate. That is, in terms of the comments we've heard. We've posted everywhere where we have a lease. Those are now layers to our map. So if you go into our website, you'll see the full 10,000-mile map. And then there are layers to turn on to see where are we leasing, where do we have joint builds, where are we purchasing, and where are we constructing. And so all of that information is currently there and up to date. I think there have to the point of when information was updated, there may have been, small segments here or there where, we have a GIS team that's going through the map, trying to provide some to improve the map all the time. And I think that's where, I'm sympathetic with the idea that if I don't know what the change is, and I just see there's a date and I don't know what changed. And that is a challenge that I think we need to solve for. But the map that is on our website is accurate as of this point and provides the information in terms of how we're developing each segment of the network.
Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Director Green. Yes, Ms. McPeak.
I just want to commend you, as other members have, about allowing all of the testimony and being the comment that was made by some of the speakers, that the staff was very welcoming. So that's important.
Thank you, Ms. McPeak. Yes, Commissioner Houck.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank the public for showing up and traveling to be here. A lot of people came from far away, and for the students in particular, especially since this impacts them exponentially, given the world we're living in today and how much the internet matters. So I just want to recognize that, and just the heartfelt and real issues that were brought to our attention today. So thank everyone for that. I want to thank you for allowing everyone to be able to be heard. And I want to thank Senator Bradford for his comments and context, and the PUC is working very hard to address these issues, and just want to assure him of that as well. And again, we've got a lot of work to do over the next several months, and look forward to continuing to engage with all of the communities impacted.
Thank you, Commissioner. Are there any committee or council members that have any comments or questions online? Not online. Well, again, this concludes our last meeting in 2023. Thank you all for your leadership. We can't achieve this without all of your organizations. You're holding us accountable to the goals and the mission of the Broadband Council. And again, the public comment was something that was very important to all of us. I'm glad that we were able to make sure that everyone had the opportunity to speak, because only through partnership. But I think was my comment last time is, it's not what we say, it's what we do that people remember. And I want to just relay that. At the end of the day, it's, obviously we talk about what we're going to do in order to address the digital divide. The world, California, is looking to us to make sure that the actions are in alignment with what we're trying to achieve, which is broadband for all. So with that, I'd like to conclude today's meeting. Our next one is scheduled for Wednesday, January 24th. Pending, well, we actually already had CBC approval for the agenda. It'll be from 9:30 to 11:30.